Dear friends, shalom, welcome, bruchim habayim. With us today are three of the finest operators and leaders in Web3 security here in Israel. We've chosen to focus with a tech spotlight today on Web3 security. The reason behind it is primarily due to Israel's position in the global security markets. As I'm sure many of you know, Israel, over the course of the last decade or two, has become a powerhouse of security. And we are now starting to see the emergence of a security landscape appearing here in Israel within Web3 too. We're going to have a 40-minute or so panel, followed by some Q&A from the crowd, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hi everybody, my name is Meirav. I'm going to be hosting this event. And before I introduce myself, I would like you guys to introduce yourselves shortly. Who you are, what you do, and what your company does.
Sure. So my name is Sam or Shmuel. I'm the CTO of Utila. Basically, what we do is we help organizations to self-custody crypto assets securely. I think that it's more from going from also key custody and how key access is controlled and monitored to how approval workflows go within that organization. But also, I think that now with the emerging I would say movement in Web3 and smart contracts, so also go into that space and extend the security model to these areas as well. And yeah, that's basically it. Happy to be here.
Hi everybody, I'm Eyal Meron, co-founder and CEO of Spherex. Personally, my background is over 2 decades in the cyber community in the governmental side in Israel. Then I was the CISO of the largest bank in Israel. And then I founded a company with Owen, my co-founder, whom I know from our mutual journey at the intelligence community. Spherex is building an innovative solution to secure smart contracts in runtime, prevent hacks, and make sure that everything that happens on-chain is safe and secure.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harel. I'm the CEO of Zango. Some of you have heard me yesterday. Apologize for appearing again. But I will try to not repeat myself. And Zango is one of the top leading crypto wallets for investors. We're differentiated by the fact that it's a wallet that you cannot lose and that you cannot hack, which is an important differentiator because everyone loses their crypto at some point, whether they want it or not. And we've built that with a number of breakthroughs in security, both cryptographic and authentication, but also at the business model level. And we have over 1 million, well over 1 million. Actually, yesterday we passed 1,100,000 registered users, which makes us one of the top 10 players globally, but I think we'll end up being one of the top 5. And we secure hundreds of millions of dollars of crypto on a permanent basis, billions of dollars in transactions. So we have an idea or two of what can go wrong in crypto, and we'll talk about that.
Great, thank you. So I'll introduce myself as well. I'm a veteran in the fields of finance and technology, combining the two before the word fintech was created. Actually started out as a programmer in the dot-com era, became an investment consultant with the Israeli SEC, and managed one of the biggest security trading websites in Israel, by LumiTrade. And if you guys know LumiTrade, I've been in the crypto space in the last 7-8 years. Been a COO in 3 blockchain companies. The first one was Bancor that raised $153 million in a 3-hour crowd sale. I work with regulators and banks and financial institutions and companies in Israel and abroad in bringing the future, I'd say in a more ethical and decentralized way. This morning I was teaching for the 8th time at the Central Bank of Israel, and today we were speaking about digital identity, and one of the directions that I'm hopefully, hopefully they will understand the value of is going, and when they're building the digital identity of Israel, they will do it in a decentralized way, and it's important that they understand it and see the value of that. And this is my 289 public speaking engagement in the last couple of years in 21 countries. Last week it was in Cyprus, before that in England. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very honored to be speaking, and I want to delve into our questions. And the first question would be to you, Meron, because we're going to be talking about Web3, and all of us understand the space. But the question is, I think, where is this going? Okay, what is the next step? What are we going to be seeing in the future in this space?
Well, first of all, I think that Web3 is much more than crypto. We are about to witness the real convergence between the Web3 ecosystem and the traditional financial organization. Its first significant expression is, of course, what we call tokenization of real-world assets. Everybody's talking about stablecoin, which is definitely the most common use case of tokenizing real-world assets, but it's only the first use case. I think in the next coming years, we will witness everything is being tokenized, and that's what actually is about to enable the convergence of these two ecosystems. So if we look at the past, like on one hand, we had the group of Web3, we looked at the other side as kind of traditional centralized entities that wants to stay in control. And if you would go to that side, they would go and look at the crypto side as degens that are trying to get easy money. Now we see how these two ecosystems are converging, and each side bring his advantages, and then we build something that is much more improved and will provide much more value. And again, I don't want to say something like very visionary, but in my opinion, it's a crucial part in the digital transformation of humanity.
Yeah.
Because the ability to move value, the ability to move ownership in a flattened world, digitally and globally, this is a huge and very significant component at that transformation.
So I'm going to continue with the next question for you, Sam, okay? And I think the question would be, okay, so we understand that we're seeing the merge of the traditional finance and the crypto world. I would ask, what do you think what is necessary for crypto to be more crypto decentralization, okay? The flattening of the centralized entities. What would be needed in order for this to happen, in your opinion?
I don't have to sell my company too much, but
Yeah, you're not allowed to.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'll go from like the self-custody area. So in 2017, I think I bought my first Bitcoin Ethereum, and I did it on Kraken. And actually, 2 years ago, I used Zengo to buy some more Ethereum. Yeah. So and at the end, I moved that crypto right away to my own wallet that I built back then, and then also with Zengo, it's like self-custody, right? But at the end, I bought the crypto from somewhere, right? And it was like an institution that would sell me this crypto. And if I'm looking at Bank of Israel, so they don't allow you to bring crypto that you bought on the street, right? So they want to see that it came from an institution previously. Yeah. So obviously, institutions have key. They have to be key players here, and this is just only from liquidity side. But if you're looking at government and regulation, so I think this is the other part that we see that it's still not as where we want it to be. Yeah. So I think institutions are probably the next step for a wider crypto adoption. Mm-hmm.
The entrance of them, you mean, into the crypto space?
Exactly, and of course it will also help. If you want to self-custody, right? Because you need to get Bitcoin from somewhere.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thanks. Okay. So Eyal, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to take it a little bit and shifting it to Israel. Okay. And I'm going to ask you, what is making, or what are the reasons that Israel is in this kind of unique position of creating these kinds of innovation? Why is this happening here?
Hummus. We're very good at hummus. My joke aside, we're really good at cooking basic ingredients. Mm-hmm. And in crypto, it is important because the basic ingredients are the security primitives of cryptography.
Right.
And this is something that in a country where security is not a decoration or a secondary need, but a core basic principle of existence, mm-hmm. This is something that is being taught very early on, right? And so I was not lucky. I'm frustrated, actually. I miss that. I didn't do the army here in Israel, but my co-founder did, and he was in a special unit, and I know some of you also were. And you are taught there some of the finest pieces of cryptography very early on, but it goes even further. Many things in cryptography have actually been invented in Israel at the pure academic level. Mm-hmm. Zero knowledge proof, mm-hmm. multi-party computation, which you guys are using, which we are using, which is now an entire industry. Mm-hmm. And so we are in the country which is literally the bedrock of the security primitives of what the entire industry is built upon. Uh-huh. And so since we're really good at cooking primitives, inevitably this becomes businesses, right? And so the same way a great hummus shop becomes eventually a hummus franchise. I'm sure you know a few if you've been in the US, Orange Hummus and a few more. But eventually we're becoming also great at transforming those security primitives into great businesses.
Right.
And I think there is this kind of alchemy that is happening in this country, which is magical, between deep academic knowledge around the security primitives and the entrepreneurship and the energy and the resilience that you can find in Israel mixed together is a Molotov cocktail for success.
Amazing. You know, I'm gonna jump back to you, Sam, if that's okay. You know, one of the positions that I did was I was on a board of directors of Excellence Investment House in Israel, which is a traditional financial house. Okay, and when we're talking, you spoke earlier about the need or the necessity of the entrance of the traditional institutions into crypto. Okay, but what is stopping them now? Like, what are the risks that need, or what needs to be taken care of in order for them to feel comfortable enough to come into this space? And I'm talking more from the security side of things.
Yeah. So as you said, like from the regulation, I think it's like a different matter. But like from the security area, I would say it's pretty much like the same thing that they already used to do, but it has like a different taste, I would say, in crypto. So basically, if you would have a safe, right, in your bank, so probably you know who can open that safe and who has the keys for that safe, and if like multiple people have like the keys for that safe, so if something disappears, you know like who you should talk to, right? But then if like somebody moves like out of this job or whatever, and you know at the end you need to maybe change the locks, you need to do some like things. So the banks already know how to do it today,
Right.
but they need like to have the same experience to do that also in crypto, like so governance and you know holding large amounts of assets together and securely. So I think it's both from like the key security perspective, but also from the access to those assets. And I think like this is one major area that like it's 2024 and like they still didn't get it. Like you still see like the same questions around backup, around access. I think like this is around the security side, but I would say that also there are some concerns around privacy and things that, you know, at the end, most of the transactions in the world are not private, and suddenly you tell them to move on chain.
Right.
It's, you know, it has to come with some kind of protection there. So I think privacy is also going to be something that will be tackled in the following years.
Beautiful. So this kind of leads us to you, Meron. You know, if we're talking about the security level, let's leave smart contracts aside. We'll talk about them in the next question. But if we're talking about the security status of Web3, okay, is it satisfactory, or is it actually, you know, like Sam said, or is it something that needs to be solved? Is it like an obstacle in realizing the potential that we're talking about in the adoption of Web3? What do you think?
First of all, I think that I'm hungry after what we explained.
All of us
No,
are.
I'm joking. It's far from being satisfactory. You know, just to give you some numbers. If we look at, I'll give you a comparison. If we look at U.S. banks,
Yeah.
the assets under management of all American banks altogether is a bit over $20 trillion.
Right.
And the direct cyber damage a year, the annual damage, is approximately $1 billion. Mm-hmm. If we take the DeFi ecosystem,
right,
we're talking about market of $100 billion,
right,
with a direct cyber damage of $2 billion a year. Mm-hmm. So if we compare the percentage of damage from the whole ecosystem, it's 400 times greater, the damage, 400 times bigger the damage in the DeFi, mm-hmm, if we compare it to the traditional finance. It's crazy.
Right.
With those numbers, no stable ecosystem can exist or can be sustainable. With these numbers, we cannot gain the trust of the mainstream. Yeah. So with that, if that's the case, the potential cannot be realized. So that situation must be solved. Yeah. Now we can talk about what are the main factors that we must tackle in order to make sure that those numbers, that we're changing this equation. And then we can talk about smart contracts. In my opinion, it's the weakest link. but there are also other challenges that must be tackled.
So I am going to ask you, because mentioning smart contracts, right? So could you kind of like explain a little bit about what they are and how they can be hacked? Like what makes them special and different from anything else that we just mentioned here?
So first of all, to explain what smart contracts are, the creator of the Ethereum is Vitalik, and he once said that he regrets that he used the phrase smart contracts. He should have called them persistent scripts, because by the end of the day, it's small or not so small sometimes computer programs that are deployed on this decentralized infrastructure that run virtual machine and implement different logics. It can be financial service, it can be tokenization of real-world assets, or any kind of logic that you determine as a builder that you want those persistent scripts to deploy, to be implemented.
Right.
Now, if we look from the perspective of hackers, it's paradise for hackers, right? It's nightmare for the builders or for the defenders, but it's paradise for the hackers. Why? It's the best ROI by far.
Okay.
First of all, you're one step for the money. You're one step from the money. If you hack into the bank, I was the CISO of the largest bank in Israel. If you hack into the bank and you try to monetize this hack, you will suffer from the bureaucracy of the bank all over again. Believe me, even if you are a hacker, you will suffer. The bureaucracy would kill you. It's so hard to monetize. But in blockchain...
Even if you're not a hacker, it will kill you.
But even if you are a hacker, the bureaucracy would kill you, because even if they want to pay, they cannot. But in blockchain, you are one step from the money. You just put your hand on the money and it's yours. Then it's immutable. Once you've done that, you cannot roll back the history.
But why smart contracts? Why is that such an easy entry point? What makes it so easy?
It's a piece of code that is exposed to the hackers. If you come from the offensive cyber background, the best thing for you in order to track a code and to find a vulnerability, a crack inside the code, is if you have the source code.
Right.
With smart contracts, you have the source code. Second, it's permissionless. Everybody can access. You are anonymous. You don't have to expose yourself if you want to access those smart contracts, right? So it's an application, open source. You have the code. Everybody can access, even if you are North Korean group, I don't know, Lazarus or any other malicious actor in the space. You're one step from the money, and once you took the money, it's gone. It's yours. Nobody can roll back the history. So when you combine all of these factors, again, as I said, paradise for the hackers, nightmares for the builders and for the defenders. That's why I'm saying this equation must be changed.
If I may add on what he just answered, it was a very good answer. I think the way to understand the state of security today in crypto, if you take an equivalent of the car industry, the equivalent would be that right now we are selling cars without brakes, without seatbelts, without airbags, and without car crash detection. The car can drive, and it will drive from A to Z at the speed that you want, but you will probably die.
Yeah.
No problem. Versus a car where you have built-in brakes, airbags, car crash detection, seatbelt, and so on, which I think is the future. The problem that most people have to think of too many things of what ifs, how can I get protected if this and that. I mean, smart contract is a huge area of failure, but there is so much more. And the common thread between all those problems is the human being. The human being is not conceived to think about all the cases where you can get hacked and be phished and steal your phrases and stuff like that. And today, the products in crypto security, in crypto at all, not in crypto security, are cars without protection.
So would this be, in your opinion, the major challenge in crypto, or would you see something else or additional to that?
From a technological standpoint,
yes.
I think the state of security in crypto is disastrous. I think the number that you gave, which I didn't know, so thank you for that, is an fantastic illustration of the size, magnitude of the disaster. I think there is no chance ever that this industry can grow, assuming that people will figure out by themselves how to safe keep seed phrases and private keys. Doesn't work. It doesn't work for newbies, and it doesn't even work for experts. The number of people who have lost their crypto being crypto savvy is insane. So I think this state of affairs is condemned to plateau, and that the next generation of solutions will be products where you have built-in bundled services of security, no matter whether they are for custodying or for interacting with apps or apps themselves, so that the user of those applications, whether they are an investor as an individual or a corporation, they don't have to think about those things. It needs to be abstracted completely.
Yeah, it needs to be natural inside, inside the way that...
Yeah, well, the same way we use today credit cards. We don't ask like, am I in HTTPS? What if my card gets stolen? Like all of that is taken care of.
Right. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads us, Sam, to kind of like delving on, another layer of this, because, and we're talking about privacy and regulation and these issues that we've been talking about. How does this fit together?
Yeah, so like first I want to add to the smart contract, and I think that the privacy is, I would say, trying to be solved by smart contracts today. But I also like see smart contracts as like if you, let's say you have a rent contract, and maybe like you read it carefully because you want to make sure that you need to paint the apartment at the end of the rent or whatever, and at the end you're saying to yourself, okay, fine, that's the contract, whatever I signed, this is the contract.
Right.
But imagine like that whoever renting you the place just added like a line at the end that says like, and you owe me all your money. And you get to a judge, and the judge says, "Yep, you signed it, so you need to do that." So this is how smart contracts work. So I would say this is because everything is to the letter, to the text. So even like a small thing that you add to it could like potentially be super disastrous. Kind of like, don't want to think about when judges would become AIs, but maybe going to be the same thing. But this is like the main problem. And like I would say going back to your question about like privacy. So I think that even today, like the application that we see with privacy today, they're not fit for institutions. They're just like basically install your MetaMask, and now you maybe have some kind of like a private tornado cache, something that might work or might not. And if you're looking at a real privacy blockchain or a contract or something like that that fits for an institution, it's not there. We also like spoke to multiple networks that are developing right now like a whole blockchain that is like super private, and then like you're asking them, okay, so how should an institution keep the secrets? And like they have like no idea. We're gonna have like a software wallet and maybe a ledger support in 2 years, or like next month. But I think that like it's still not getting there, but I think it's like a must for institutions to have that. And we have like even I would say not big institutions, even like customers, they don't really care about like if the federal government of the USA can see their transactions. They more just want to see the competition seeing their transactions. And I think that like semi-regulated privacy is something we're probably going to see, and is like something that blocks today institutions, to go into crypto.
Because it's like what you guys said at the beginning, it's kind of like two different worlds, right? There's the crypto world that has its own kind of mannerism and its value system, and okay, so we have private keys and public keys and all of that, and then you have the institutions that are looking and like, seriously, like how are we supposed to play in this field? Which kind of brings us to the next question for you, Meron. Can the situation change? I mean, like, what would be needed in order for this problem to be solved and to bring us to the next level?
Well, before I start to answer, I must admit that I'm subjective and biased, because that's what we are doing. But actually, if you look at the security, if you look at the security landscape for smart contracts today, it is based on two major things. The first one is audit. Audit is pre-deployment manual code review. It's important, it's mandatory, but it's never enough. It's not automatic, it can never be enough. And then you have post-deployment, threat detection, early alerts, monitoring capabilities. It's too late, not to say post-mortem. So someone must solve this challenge. That's what we are building. There are few other companies in the world that tries to do the same. Again, as I said, I'm super biased and subjective, but I think that our solution is much more advanced. But what we are building actually is a security and compliance module on-chain that becomes part of the project, kind of like a security extension to the project. And each transaction, before it is finalized, as part of the execution, is being inspected, analyzed, and if it is a malicious transaction, then it's reverted. Then it is stopped and rolled back, because the only place in blockchain where can you roll back is before this transaction is finalized. So any malicious or non-compliant or fraudulent activity is prevented, and you maintain the on-chain operation fully sanitized, fully secure, fully safe.
One token.
That's on our roadmap as well.
Sounds like the future.
Yeah, which brings us to you, Eyal, because Israelis are usually good at resolving complex technical problems, but crypto kind of requires, I think, not only on the security level but also on the user experience, right, and the services.
Yes.
So, do you think that Israel can crack this too?
Like I said, we're good at hummus. We're not good at 5-star Michelin, cooking, but we're getting there. I think we start to have some good cooks in the world, around the world. Look, I think the strength of this country is definitely technical.
Right.
There's absolutely no doubt about it. Israel shines not just in crypto, in many, many different fields, including now in AI. The place where traditionally we've been not as good at is at transforming this technology into great customer experience,
Right.
and talking the language of the user and the end user and the customer. This is something that we're struggling, maybe because we're a small country, or maybe because it has never been a priority. However, I think this is changing. We've seen it already, obviously, in Web2 with great apps, consumer apps that have been really created here and taken globally. One of which is Waze, and I see here in the crowd an illustrious representative of this former representative of this company, but also many others, Viber, to name a few, and Fiverr, and so on. So this has given birth to an entire generation of great product teams, product guys, product designers.
Right.
And unfortunately, what I think is missing in crypto in Israel, but I think in crypto at all, not just in Israel, is to see this Web2 DNA of great product designers
Right.
arriving into Web3. And the way it translates is not just in the cosmetics of the product, it's in how you think about the experience end to end, so that the user, again, coming back to what you have to think about when something can go wrong.
Why do you think this is not happening? I mean, this is a question for all of you. What's stopping it from happening? I mean, we've been in this space for 7-8 years, and still the UX, as we say, is not in the level that it should be. Shouldn't it already happen? Why is it not happening?
It's kind of already happening, and you can see that with wallet technologies, what are becoming radically better.
Right.
You can see it also in Web3 apps, which are starting to honestly be comparable, sometimes superior. For example, there is a social network. I don't know if you know that there are social networks being built on blockchains.
Right.
And there is one or two in particular that stand out because they are at least as good, sometimes even better than Twitter. One of which called Farcaster. It's a protocol, their app called Warpcast. And you try it, and you feel like nearly no difference. You don't even know and feel that it's built on crypto. And the reason it's happening as we speak is because the people that are building the product are not coming from crypto. They're coming from other industry. Okay, now if you ask me, there is another critical thing missing in that industry.
Yeah.
There's just not enough women. DNA, right? Feminine DNA that brings the quality that you can feel in internet Web2 today, right? I think there is something that is unique that women brings when they touch with their magic something, and I think we don't have that. You can see and feel that when you go to a crypto event.
Yeah, when I speak, I sometimes speak in front of audiences.
I'm sure when you
400, 500 men and 3 secretaries.
A lot of birds.
Why?
Very few nails. And why? Because historically this industry has attracted.
No, I know why, but yeah.
Has attracted a sort of community that is kind of exclusive for men, right? Anarchists and people that are like revolutionary and like kind of special layers of the society, but that now is changing. So now if you go to crypto conference, you start to feel and see those mixes.
Not sure that's the reason.
Well, I think it's one of the reasons.
I think it's one of the reasons, but I think that if we look at crypto as the combination between finance, which is sadly still a male-dominant field, and technology, which is sadly still male-dominant field, then the group of people that would be inside that would have both of these, I'd say, backgrounds is very small. And I think it's part of that.
The fact that it's very finance centric, but in finance you have also a lot of women. But bottom line, I think there is a question of skill DNA, which is a combination of like people not coming enough from the Web2 yet. It's starting to happen, and also not enough mixes in terms of genres that kind of explain that. And I think also there is not enough playbooks. I think a lot of people are building on their own without trying to kind of standardize. And so that doesn't help because you have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Right. So I think that kind of brings us to another question for you, Sam, okay? Because if we're talking about the future of crypto, part of it has to do with crypto custody, right? How do you see that panning out, and what's needed? Like, how is this, what's the future of it? How do you see this going?
I think we're going to see more things moving on-chain. I think that's for sure. I also think that we see the blockchains themselves evolving, and it's a little bit connected to the previous questions. It is happening. Like, we will see this revolution, or evolution, but I would say that it's not because it didn't succeed, it's because it did succeed. So now it's very hard to change what's already there. Right. And now, everybody with a small chain builds their own blockchain, and then you have like fragmentation of like power of like where you build. And to be honest, like even if you're looking at the major blockchains today, whether it's like, I would say, okay, Bitcoin, but like Ethereum and Solana, let's say, so you can see that features starting to overlap because the world demands the same thing, and they have to like accommodate for that. Right. So I think progress is slow because at the end it's money. You don't want like, okay, let's scrape that entire $1 billion project and start a new one. Right. So it will happen, but and it will
some sort of consolidation maybe between the different.
It's still going to be a tough war with probably big winners. That's what I assume. But I think that the custody itself, the custody part, will have to adapt itself to the blockchains. So if it's like smart contracts, so suddenly like doing MPC, like what we do, what Zengo does, it won't be enough. You suddenly need to go into smart contract security. You need to do the entire job. So I think this is what's the future going to change in the custody space.
I'm going to ask another question about the integration of Web3, not only on the financial side, because when we're looking at a decentralization, and you spoke earlier about it happening in social media and other places, one of the issues that are kind of like not clear, or it would be nice if you could shine a little bit light on it, is the I'd say the speed or the lack of speed of adoption of Web3 solutions, even if they are wonderful and they look like Twitter, okay? And even when we're looking at the really good stuff, and I'm not talking only about the institutional side, but I'm talking about regular people using Web3 solutions and understanding the benefit of decentralization as opposed to centralized entities. What do you think needs to happen other than the UX needs to change? Okay, but even when it does, people are still not there. So how do you see this panning out? Where do you think this is going? And this is a question for any of you that wants to address it.
So I think that it's not only in the crypto world. And what I mean by that is, for example, today you have like security chips in mobile phones that can hold private keys. But these private keys, let's say, are not compatible maybe with some blockchains. So it's like you cannot bridge that gap. And I think that suddenly we will see that you are able to hold crypto keys in your mobile by using specialized hardware, just like probably you have specialized hardware that supports Apple Pay or Google Pay. Right. And I think that as we move forward, so we will see less private keys, at least for the lower tiers of users. And I think that for like financial institutions, they will know how to use private keys. They will have like this entire operation themselves, just like they know today how to custody gold in safes under like the ground. They need to be that technical because at the end, they are like the big players in that world. But I think that it's going to be like a mix of like very abstracted away custody for like the, I would say, lower tier players, and for the higher tier players, so you will see just like a more sophisticated custody. So you think it's
more of a technological development that needs to happen in order for mass adoption to take place?
It's already happening now. It's just going to take, I think.
Do you have the same view, or do you look at things differently?
First of all, I think that there are 4 elements that must be solved in order to allow the mass adoption. Okay. First is scalability, is the performance of blockchains. Frankly, I think that this one is already solved. Yeah. If we look at the progress in the ecosystem in the last 2 years, maybe in the last year, the number of L2s and even L1s that provide huge performance is totally something that we could only dream of 2 years ago.
Right.
So I think that the scalability issue that was one of the most talked about obstacles for mass adoption is pretty solved.
Right.
The second thing is regulation, and the regulatory frameworks are very important because if you don't have that, you cannot do the convergence that I've been talking about that solves actually most of the issue and providing you on the relevant use cases. Because by the end of the day, people are entering the space when the use case serves them, right? If they have a relevant use case that give them a real advantage in entering the space, they would use it. But for that, you need to have the regulatory framework, so clarity. Now we see a lot of progress. We see that on Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, someone told me here, Switzerland as well. But yet, it's a progress, I think. And everybody's talking about the United States and what happens there with the SEC and what's about to happen. I don't have a good prediction, but I do see, again, if I take only perspective of 3 years and up to now, a huge progress. And since some of the countries already moved forward, that will create a kind of like competitive pressure on the other ones to move forward as well. So I think regulatory framework or clarity is something that in 5 years from now won't be an issue. The third thing is UX. You mentioned that. I think that it comes both from technology development, as my colleagues here said. Also, I think that the account abstraction, I can elaborate on that, but I won't do that, solves some of the fundamental problems, such as restoring keys and stuff like that. And you also have, again, the convergence of the ecosystems, makes sometimes this UX transparent for you, because you don't have to know what is in behind, right? You just use the application that you use or the service provider that give you his interface. So it kind of like solves a major issue. And again, the fourth one is the security. We talked about it. I think all of us, the community is doing a lot of progress. And I do believe that this issue, if we talk 5 years from now, won't be an obstacle.
Okay. So we're down to the last
I'm
question.
optimistic.
You're optimistic. And I have a question for you exactly,
Okay,
Ariel.
I just want to add one word, urgency. Yeah, urgency. I think it's important that, in matters of finance, people don't move and change if things are just a little better. You need to have an urgent reason. I just give you an illustration of that, what I mean by that. One is already known. You go to a country where the money is completely crashing. You go to whatever, Lebanon, you go to Argentina, you go
Even Turkey.
Yeah, Turkey, and many more. And what can they do? They need urgently money so that they can live, so they can send money. I give you another example, which is more personal. Some time ago, not so long ago, but we raised a round, and we needed to have a wire arriving from our investor before a certain date. It was critical so that we could close the operation. Yeah. The bank would not proceed for many reasons. Don't want to get into the detail. So what did we do? We accepted exceptionally to have this wire done in USDC in stablecoin. Yeah. It arrived in 10 minutes. Yeah. End of story. Yeah. And so when you are in situation of urgency and of emergency, then crypto comes in and it's like oxygen in a room that doesn't have oxygen. Yeah. And so I think once you reach this point, and there are many situations in life, then you get to it.
So, which kind of leads us to our last question, and it's for you, Uriel, okay? And we can't go through this session without talking about the regional war that we're having here. And it seems that crypto has been kind of like a key in the battlefield on both sides. And I guess the question would be like, how is crypto instrumental in a war and in a time of peace? It kind of also it adds on to what you were saying about the urgency.
Look, like any technology, it can be used for good and for bad.
Right.
We've seen that in the past 20 years of the internet. Anything from instant messengers to e-commerce sites to web chat rooms can be used for great stuff and for disastrous operation. Is the same thing in crypto. Unfortunately, there are many bad actors. In that war in Israel, we've seen it. We've seen terror organization use crypto at scale in order to fund their operations. Right. That made the news. It's not a secret, right? And by the way, many Israeli companies have been behind the operations that have enabled to seize and stop those funds right on time. Right. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. So crypto, I think, can be used for bad things. It is being used in this war for bad things. But it's also, I have hope, because I have seen all use cases where crypto is being used to solve urgent situations. Right. And I will give you an example. I remember when the war started in Israel, there was a group that spontaneously was created. I can't remember the name. I think it was called Crypto Aid Israel or something like that. But many others also abroad, not just for and about Israel, that accepted donations in crypto, and they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in no time. And so, you know, why did that happen? Because there was an urgency situation, and people used that technology because it moved at a speed that traditional money could not flow with. And so I think this is very important to realize that technology can be used for good and for bad. Here in Israel specifically, you have great companies and technologies that are being used to trace crypto funds, to know if the crypto is legit or not legit, to seize crypto funds, to know, in case that something can go wrong. And there are also great companies that help you collect crypto. We don't do that. It could be the wallet that receive them, but collect crypto for good. So I'm very hopeful about that. I think also crypto will unlock peace, because I am a strong believer that peace will not come through politics. I am a believer that peace will come through business opportunities that will be unlocked by technology, because it's a universal language. Yeah. Everyone wants a house, everyone wants a car, everyone wants a normal life, and you can only get that with business opportunities. Mm-hmm. So to me, crypto promise of peace. Beautiful. And I think it's not said enough. It's often qualified as this dirty little duck, black duck that is like on the corner of the financial industry. But to me, this is the opposite. It is the door that once you open it, unlocks peace. Yeah. So I think it's important to say that.
Beautiful. So I think, thank you, gentlemen. And I think this is a good place with this hope of talking about peace and about the future to end our panel. If anybody has questions, this would be the time. And if not, you can catch any of our panelists right after we're finished, right?
Yeah, we have time for 2 or 3 questions.
We have time for 2 to 3 questions from the audience. Yes, please.
The 400 times more hacking that we have over DeFi compared to the dollar value traded there compared to the fiat world. But we have to remember that we're not comparing apples to apples, because over the DeFi, everyone is active. It's mostly a B2C market, private, people, traders, and private companies. However, over the DeFi, we're only dealing with its institutionals, banks, financial institutions who have CSOs, like you have been with one of the major banks and others. So it's not, it makes more sense that institutionals will make a lot more efforts into security rather than any investor and all the hacks and phishing scams that will happen. So when we compare, we need to compare institutional activity over DeFi, which is very rare, as we know, and the amount of hacks over there compared to institutional activity over fiat and how many hacks and cyber activities are happening over there. So that's it. Sorry. I mean, I'm protecting the industry in that sense, but it's not a fair comparison.
First of all, I agree. So I don't think...
You can
Can you hear me? Yeah. First of all, I totally agree with what you said. I think that, again...
Then you're right.
my wife keeps telling me that. I think that I agree with you. The reason why I put these numbers on the table, because if you put the lens of an end user that puts his money in a bank rather than in a different protocol, knows that the money will be there tomorrow morning, because the odds that the money is gone due to a hack, the percent is so low that everything also insured due to that fact, because it is insurable because of the odds that are very low. In DeFi, you can wake up in the morning and find out it's gone because of that ratio. So of course, institutionals cannot afford themselves working in an ecosystem of these conditions that provide such a poor security. I totally agree with you. That's why I said that in order to restore the trust of the masses, of the mainstream, of the end users, by the end of the day, my grandma's life savings, in order to make sure that she can put her money on blockchain, we must provide her with institutional grade security and not the DeFi ecosystem current security solution that exists today. So I agree with you totally.
Any additional questions? Okay, so in that case, thank you all for joining us. Tomo, do you want to say a few words?
Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you find it as inspiring as I did. We have some good 30, 40, 50 minutes ahead of us of interacting and getting to know people around us. So make good use of the time. You can feel free to approach the panelists here and ask questions or make comments if you want. And thank you very much, everyone, for the participation. Meirav for the lovely leadership of this panel. And welcome, everyone, to Aleph. Thrilled to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.